It's time for another power-packed episode of Headspace with Dr. Mike. Each week, Dr. Mike is committed to addressing real-life, sometimes polarizing and controversial issues while offering practical and informed insight. Listen in as we discuss hot topics that matter to us and the communities we live in.
What's up, everybody? It's Headspace time. How's everybody doing today for another week? My man Seth, what's going on? Hope all is well with you as well. I'm sorry, I went ahead and pushed it ahead of time. Crystal, don't mind me. I was just trying to see it. Y'all, I'm excited to be with you all. We're here for another episode of Headspace with Dr. Mike. I just want to let you all know that I am so humbled that you take time to spend some time listening in and tuning in. Either you're a part of the live audience that we broadcast every day on social media, or if you listen to the podcast, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I do not take that for granted. What's up, Kevin? What's up, Mama? How are you? Love you. I do not take for granted that you all take time out of your day to listen in, and I'm glad you are, and I'm glad you are listening. I may sound a little funny today. I'm just letting y'all know that I was in Utah all of the week for the Association of Talent and Development, and no, it is not COVID, just so y'all know, because some people, I may cough or something and you all will be worried. It is not COVID. I've been tested twice just to make sure. Looks like I brought back a sinus infection. So my sinuses and my ears are bothering me. But you know what? That's why the Lord gave the doctors knowledge of how to remedy that. Excuse me. And I have the antibiotics working through my system. And I have a beautiful wife that is playing Nurse Shavela, taking care of me. And so we're going to be all good. But you didn't come in for that. What you came in for was today's show. Headspacers, guess what? I want you to welcome our guest host for today, Bri Dupree. Come on, Bri. Come on and join the people. How are you, Bri?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dr. Mike?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing awesome. It's so good to see you. So, Bri, several years ago, I'm not going to try to date us. I'm not going to try to, as people can figure out the math.
Right.
I was on a little recruitment trip. And there was an impressionable young, I want to say you were a junior, or maybe you were, no, I think you were a junior. Were you a junior? Yeah, you were a junior.
Yeah, I think I was a junior. Yep.
An impressionable junior. I think you were SGA president, or you were on the way to be an SGA president.
Yeah.
She came to this college fair. If I may be wrong, but I think you had a leather briefcase. Like, I think
I can't remember.
I think you came in there like ready to go. Like, you were ready to sign off on somebody's contract. And I do remember having conversations with the other college reps, and they were equally as impressed with you as I was. But I won the bag.
You sure did.
You did make it over to Cedarville.
I did.
And so proud of you and all that you've been accomplishing. And you guys are going to be learning a lot more about Bri over our time today. She agreed without even really giving it much thought. I texted her and said, hey, would you be willing to guest host with me on Saturday? And you were like, absolutely. I mean, it was literally within 5 minutes of sending the text. Like,
it's easy.
Now, one of the jokes that I have, so I'm going to tell just a little quick story though. There's a group of us. So I, in my former life, I was responsible for bringing more students of color to our alma mater, right? And so I was responsible for really recruiting particular African-American students. And so one of them was the one that I like the joke that I recruited him like a blue chip athlete. And he actually ended up taking over my role when I departed from Cedarville. Right. And he ended up like just taking it to the next level. And so you and a couple of the other guys that are in, we have a Marco Polo. Yes, so y'all, let me tell y'all something. I'm the old man, and they let me be a part of this Marco Polo.
We love having
They let me be a part of it. And so we have this Marco Polo. We call it the Church on Fire Elders.
Yes.
And we get together, and I mean, we literally talk to each other practically every day.
Yes.
And it's been incredible. And so, we know about everything that's going on in everybody's lives, but it's just so awesome to have you on the show. So, Bri, you got anything you want to say to the people?
Hey, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Mike, first of all, for letting me come on. And I'm excited just to talk and hang out today. That's why I responded so quick. Mike is my brother, a father figure at times when I need it, and a little rebuking correction. And so if he asks me for anything, my answer is yes. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm honored. Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and get into the show. Bri, what's happening in the news? What's going on?
Yeah, so Hurricane Ida is out here. Everybody's talking about it. So my family lives in Pennsylvania. So I just checked on them this week just because there is a lot of flooding out where they are. But thankfully, like my sister works from home. My baby sister goes to school from home. My brother's in college, but he's had no like real significant damage from his college campus. And so, but it's crazy to see the impact it's having all across the Northeast. It's really insane.
I mean, this is nuts. First of all, I don't use this lightly. Thoughts and prayers are with all the families that are dealing with this, all the way from Louisiana up to even Maine.
Yes.
Just crazy. I mean, it made landfall in Louisiana, but then it just trashed everybody else. Like the images of the flooding in New York City. I think they said that stuff like that doesn't happen in like 500-year increments.
Right.
Oh man,
it's ridiculous. And it's been seeing we were just talking about the people who have been jumping into the water now, the flooding, and how many diseases they probably contracted.
Right.
And
that water is browner than us, and
right.
they all jumping into it. Like how you do that?
Hey, Shabella. Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's insane.
It is insane. But hey, I know that Louisiana, especially, they haven't had power.
Right.
So I think the piece of it that is just, I think, is humbling is the fact that 16 years to the day of Katrina, right? And
right.
So just they can't catch a break. I know a lot of people who actually left New Orleans after Katrina and never returned, and so I wonder if that's probably going to be the same thing for this go round too. It's just so heart wrenching.
Right, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh. So the other piece of news we have is, of course, we still have the fallout from the troop withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Right.
And I think you and I both have a lot of friends and even family members who, to some degree, played a role in pieces of that, right? Either they were deployed over there or they have to support people that are over there.
Right.
I think that is just a sad piece. Now, tell me this: you're down in Florida now.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? Are you guys taking any refugees down there, or are they doing anything down in Florida to kind of care for the people that are coming from Afghanistan?
Yeah, nothing that I've really heard of about anything in Florida. I'm not sure like what our governor is doing, what the state's doing.
Okay.
I just know, just watching, like you said, I have friends who have been deployed out there. I have friends who have family members who are deployed out there. And so just hearing all the like horrific news stories, it goes from being a news story that you watch on a TV show to one that's like, man, this is real. And even like the persecution of the church out there went to a new level. And I mean, I think all the pictures have been heart wrenching. And I think it weighed down my heart a little bit heavier than I think things in the past. I don't know, because we know so much right now and we're all at home or kind of, trying to get through just COVID. And then this happens on top of it. But it's been a lot to carry for sure.
I tell you what, I think that, and we've talked about this before, just social media and then 24/7 news.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just, I think that really doesn't help the situation, right? It kind of, just blows it up. I mean, because we're forced to deal with it. Kevin asked, "Are you taking in refugees in Baltimore, Dr. D?" Okay, so me personally, no, they can't fit into our home. But I do tell you that Maryland is playing a very active role in taking on the refugees. As a matter of fact, the refugees, but then you also have the Americans that need to come home, and that is known as repatriation.
Mm-hmm.
And the agency that I do work for actually takes some work in that. We actually do assist with those things when they get to a point. I believe there was several years ago, a war broke out in Lebanon, and we had to get all of the Americans back home from that.
Oh,
And
wow.
so many people from my office actually were stationed at BWI. I tell you what, people don't realize this, but when you're called back home, the government really does do what they can to take care of you. Like they bring you home, they work with you to get flights to wherever you need to get to, and then they give you like a no interest loan on housing. Like they actually give you money to. There's a whole lot of stuff that they do to just kind of get you on your feet and get you in a situation where you can be taken care of. And so it's not a bad deal. It's just a matter of, you got to get home to get it, So, and then here's the other thing, because, President Biden and, you know, um, the listeners, how you can kind of pretty much figure it out where I went when the last election happened, just when it came to the two options. But one of the things I will say is that I will be as critical of any leader, regardless of who they are.
Sure.
And so, with that being said, I don't necessarily know enough to be able to say whether or not President Biden should be impeached for this.
Sure.
I do think that he really was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. Like, I think that he just was stuck. Sure, we would have liked to have seen it go a lot better. I'm not convinced that it would have. I think that the Taliban made it very clear that if we weren't out by a certain date, they were going to do what they were going to do. Mm-hmm. On top of that, and we were talking. Matter of fact, we were talking to one of our friends. I was talking to one of our friends, Bri.
Yeah.
The question was, how many of these? And this is not. Some people are going to be upset with me, but that's why this is Headspace with Dr. Mike. Mm-hmm. The date was always there. So why is it that people didn't start making plans before then? I guess that's my question. So that's a question I have. Like, I just would like to know, like, what were you doing in these 19 months when, you were told that this date was looming? Did you start making preparation? Right. And maybe because I watch a lot of Homeland and 24 and all that stuff, mm-hmm. I am not convinced that there's not no covert operations that are happening as we speak. You know what I mean? Like,
right. I feel
and the president can't get on the TV and say, all right, y'all, so SEAL Team 7 is going to meet at this little rock on the cleft of the hill.
Right.
Pick up these people that are dressed like shepherds and extract. Like, he's not going to say all that,
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a vivid imagination.
Right.
One thing before we go on break, and this is just a little weird. Nas X, what is he doing?
Okay, listen. When he came out with the whole blood in the shoes, that was the thing before. Right. And now he's pregnant. I think he's trying to, some people think he's taking a jab at Drake and his new album.
Okay.
Because his whole cover is all the, the pregnant women or whatever, pregnant emojis.
Okay.
He just likes to, I think Lil Nas just likes to stir the pot. Obviously, he's been hurt. He's trying to get back at some people who have hurt him. He just likes to do it. So when I saw it, I just rolled my eyes because I said, he's just trying again to get attention. And it's worked. He got attention.
He got attention because we're talking about it, aren't we?
Yes.
And you know how when you're scrolling through and you just see these little images?
Yeah.
And
Sean. Who let Sean on Facebook?
One of the elders said, now church pastors be pregnant with stuff too. Oh my goodness. So yeah, you know how you're scrolling through and you'll see something, and then all of a sudden later on down the road, you're like, that's what that was about.
Right.
I remember scrolling through and there was like this pregnant man, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, what is going on?
Right.
And then I went back and said, oh, this fool then did some stuff to make it look like but did you see it? Like, he really does look like he got the baby bump.
Yes, he does. He 100% does. And they say obviously it's fake, but he must have got some really good makeup artists to do it. He did all that work, did a whole photo shoot. Who knows how many thousands of dollars he spent just to get people right up. So this is Drake's cover. I don't know if you can see it.
We can't really see. Oh yeah, the different emojis. Yeah.
So people think that he's trying to maybe do a little like
play on that.
Yeah, play on that.
Well, and you know what's funny? Not Carlton Banks, not Carlton Banks, the social media influencer.
Yeah.
He posted something with his little character is pregnant. They're all a mess. They are all a mess.
We can't catch a break.
We can't catch a break. But speaking of breaks, let's go ahead and catch our first break.
Awesome.
2020 gave birth to a lot of endeavors. Here in 2021, everyone has had to get in touch with their inner producer. Our man Garrett Brace is one of those guys you need on your team. We at Headspace with Dr. Mike are clients of his as he ensures all of our audio files are crisp, clean, and cool. If you have any audio, video, and even lighting needs, hit him up at G Walt Services on Instagram. Remember, G Walt Services, servicing all your audio, video, and lighting needs.
So today's Heads Up is titled Making Room for Growth. And you all know that I do a lot with talking about setting goals and expectations for yourselves. One of the things that I always talk about is, I like to use the word expectation and not goal, because I feel that if you set an expectation, then the consequences of not achieving that expectation seem a little more tight as opposed to a goal. We set goals all the time, but we've given ourselves permission, either consciously or unconsciously, to not achieve that goal. And so one of the things that we really set is expectations. And so whatever it is, if you set an expectation, set a goal, I'm not going to mark you off for it. But that's just my rationale for it. So with that, one of the things we always talk about is stretch goals, right? We always say, you want to set something that you want to have to stretch out to be able to reach. And I think those are great. But one of the things that I think, and I work with coaching other people from time to time, and one of the things that I never hear them say right away is that they set a goal to grow. They may set a goal to lose weight. They may set a goal to get better grades. They may set a goal to do better with their finances, to get in a relationship, to be a better family member. But I never really hear them say, what, I just want to grow. Like I want to grow from point A to point B, or where I'm at to the next thing. And one of the things I want to challenge you all as we're really thinking about how we're moving into this last quarter of 2021 is, have you made room for growth, right? And what do I mean by that? So if any of you horticulturalists out there, bear with me, and you may have to correct me a little bit out there, but bear with me. If I plant a plant, and of course, when it's a baby, it's only going to need a certain amount of space for its roots to get entrenched. But one of the things we find out is, if after a while, there's only a certain point that the plant will grow in that pot, right? And if I were to have a situation, I'm like, why won't a plant grow? You can Google this, and they'll tell you, well, you probably need to get a bigger pot for it. Why? Because it needs to grow. And so what you have to do is, if I stay in this pot, how can I expect to grow beyond the pot if I haven't given myself room to grow in the pot? So a lot of times what ends up happening is I put the plant in the type of pot that it needs to be able to expand into, right? A great example of this is in the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 2. Enlarge the place of your tent, and let the curtains of your habitation be stretched out. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. And if you get further into it, and Elder Dupree, she can probably fix some of my theology on this if I mess it up. But one of the things we recognize here is that it talks about the fact that there are blessings that are coming to you, but you haven't gotten them yet. But the thing about it is, in expectation of what's to come, you got to be ready to receive it. And there's a lot of blessings, and I don't want to say this, I'm not trying to scare away all my non-churchy folk, but there are a lot of blessings, that there are things that you're wanting. There's growth that you want to have. But one of the reasons why you haven't really been able to get it is because you haven't made room for it, right? There's somebody out there who's in a process of like trying to lose weight, right? And that's the world that I'm living in. By the way, just as an FYI, because I want to give you all a piece of accountability. You all know I told you guys what my magic number was. I told you what my magic number was. My magic number was back at the beginning of August was 554. Guess what, y'all? I got on the scale today and it was 520. So I want to let you know that, and I'm being consistent with that. And I tell you that because these are some things that we do. When you make room for growth, what happens is not only are you able to kind of be able to grow into it, but also you're able to see the progress that you've made, right? So you're trying to lose weight. So what you do is you get a couple of outfits that you haven't been able to fit in yet. And what you do is from time to time, what you do is you start putting yourself in those outfits so that you can start, guess what, seeing the progress, but also you're prepared for when you actually can fit it. Here's the other thing. You've been asking for that job. You've been sitting there waiting for the situation. You know what you do? You go ahead and you set your alarm for that time that you would have to get up to prepare for that job. And some people even say, get dressed for the job. Go out in your car. Drive to the location. Do what you got to do. But the point is the idea of making room for growth. You got to make room for growth. One other piece that I want to say about that is making sure that when you're making room for growth, that also means you have to be careful that you don't have anything that gets in the way and strangles your growth. What do I mean by that? Go back to the plant in the illustration. One of the reasons why you got to get in a bigger pot is because your roots start expanding, they start going out, they start growing out. And along the way, they could get caught up in some rocks, they could get caught up in some sticks, they can get caught up in, they may not get enough of the nutrients that they need. And so what ends up happening is that ends up stifling the growth as well. What does that have to do with me? Well, how many of us have been in situations like relationships that were unhealthy for us? And you're wondering why you can't get any rest at night. You're wondering why your hair's falling out. You're wondering why your digestive system's not working the way it is. Well, part of it is because you're getting the wrong types of nutrients in your body. You have some folk that are strangling your growth. Every time you start talking about where it is that you believe that you're supposed to be going, what it is that God has said that he wants to do for you, or that he's promised that he's going to take you to, or all those things, you have the naysayers that say, well, that's not going to work for you, or you're not ready for that, that's stifling your growth. So making room for growth may mean that I have to put myself in a situation where those people, you don't have to necessarily pull them out of your life, but you have to pull them out of that place of influence in your life. We give many people too much power over what it is that we're supposed to be going into. And at the end of the day, we got to remember, I know what I heard. I know what I heard. And that's how you make room for growth. With that being said, that's my heads up.
Follow the Headspace with Dr. Mike show on all social media platforms at Headspace DM. We want to keep you up to date on all of our hot topics and keep the dialogue going even after the show. We also value what's important to you and your community. DM your show ideas to us on Instagram or Facebook. The next time you log on, you may hear Dr. Mike discussing the very topic or issue close to your heart.
Making room for growth. My goodness. Bri, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Your testimony, I think that spoke to you as well, because that's kind of been our story for these last 18 months, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was over here shouting you down. Good thing my mic was muted because I would have disrupted everything. But yes, it's true. You have to make room for growth. And, we've talked about it before that I have left kind of the conventional world of ministry. I felt like God was calling me to step out on my own 2 feet and start a ministry that really has no blueprint. It's quite unique. And I'll talk about that later. But what you said definitely resonated with me, that you have to make room for growth. And for me, it looked like leaving my steady, consistent job at a church I loved in Ohio to move to Florida to stand on my own 2 feet to start a ministry that I feel like God has created for me. And so I'm making room actively and literally making room for growth in those areas. So yeah, you almost had me underneath this table, but I had to keep myself together. You talk
I'm
about
gonna tell y'all
me.
something.
You
I'm
were
gonna tell y'all something. By the end of this session, don't be surprised if there's some points where we ain't speaking in English. You know, this one right here has a way of pulling those things out.
Jesus.
So let's deal with a couple little head notes though.
Yeah.
We got a situation in Texas.
Yes.
Texas, I tell you, they're just acting up, aren't they? They really
They are.
They really are doing it up. And you know, I am very fascinated by this because they, you know, we haven't even begun to talk about the real restrictive voting laws that they've established.
Right.
And I mean, unfortunately, it's our country is divided among party lines.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
But they really made the news when they made what is considered one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what that is. Like, what exactly is this law?
Yeah. So from my understanding, they've banned pretty much all abortions, in Texas, for anyone. And so there's a lot of debate about whether or not this is really about women's rights. Are they making the right decision? And you and I have talked before, and as believers, I definitely believe that the life happens at conception.
Yeah.
So
and let's make sure we clarify for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, the way the law stands is it's practically 80% of the abortions that will be had in Texas are no longer legal.
Yes.
I think it's 6 weeks from basically 6 weeks when the heartbeat can be heard, like once they can confirm that there's a heartbeat.
Right.
And so I think one of the first issues is most people don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks.
Right.
Right. And then secondly, it doesn't make any type of rape, incest,
right,
all of that. And I think the biggest part of it is it's not so much that like a person will arrest you for getting an abortion. It is if I'm a citizen and I find out that you got one or you help someone get one,
right,
I can report you. No, I can sue you.
Right.
And if I win the suit, I can be awarded $10,000. What in the? I've never heard of anything like that. Like,
it's really crazy. And you think, I have a lot of friends who are like, thank God, because and I'm pro-life, but I'm pro all life.
Yeah.
And so that means that when you make a law like this, you have to think about, okay, so are we going to give more funding to women's centers? Are we giving more funding to adoption and foster care? I'm just thinking about like the impact this is going to have. And the scene that I just have in my mind, it might be funny, but it's in For Colored Girls. There's that scene where
Macy Gray.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Macy Gray does the like in the alleyway abortion for this girl because she can't afford one. And I was thinking of there are going to be more girls who do that. I'm not, and I've been able to walk people through abortions before. I've helped people make the decision not to do abortions, but because they didn't do the abortion because they had support elsewhere. And so I think even as believers, yes, I'm pro-life, and no, I don't want to see mothers kill their babies, but we have to put them in a position to say, okay, now we're going to help you. We can't just rejoice over a law and not really think through the impact of it. So I think I was appreciative that you brought this up on the show. I think more Christians need to be talking through the implications of this law rather than just being like, oh, praise God, there are no more babies going to be killed. Yeah, they still are, but it's going to be, we're probably going to lose the moms too now.
That is, you're right. That scene in For Colored Girls where the young woman goes to get an abortion and the character that Macy Gray plays, I think about that. She was in this dirty apartment.
Filthy.
She was smoking a cigarette.
Oh my God.
She mixed some liquor and some other stuff in a bucket.
Right.
And that was supposed to sterilize the
tool she used.
Yeah. And then I think the what she used for anesthesia was basically she gave the girl a drink.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then she did the back alley abortion.
Yep.
And that's how it's gonna be. Or what's gonna happen is people just they're gonna go somewhere else to do it. It's very interesting, and you're right. As Christians, we're rejoicing over that, but did we rejoice over everything else? Like you said, is the funding increase in social services? Like, yes. Really? And working in social services, I'm gonna tell you, we're not the most funded programs
Right.
in the States.
Right.
Those
Sad.
programs don't bring money in, and so therefore they're not funded like that. And most of them are funded federally, right, by certain. So now you got, and then not to mention, we don't pay the social workers enough. And can you imagine? So we're not even let's talk about the mental health.
Right.
So you have a rape victim, right, who now is forced to have this baby, and look at this, and always, I mean, so we're gonna deal with their mental wellness?
Yeah, we have to. And I think, I mean, if church people are going to get upset, then I think we need to take the forefront of that charge then and say, okay, if we've banned abortions, then we're going to be on the front lines and say we're going to help these girls, these women, come up with the money for mental health care and all those things. I just think we have to back up our words. And if we're going to be pro-life, let's be pro all life. And so I'm in no way, shape, or form any time of feminist. I'm not, that there's this phrase, this meme going around that says it's telling when you'll get there's more of a penalty for having an abortion than there is for being raped. And so don't say that this is not a fight against women. So I'm not convinced that there's a war against women in America, but I think there's a point that there's more of a penalty for having an abortion than there is for you being raped. That's something we need to look at. And I'm not in those positions to make those laws, but something I thought about because I have friends who've experienced that before. They have been raped and been molested, and thinking through, man, their rapists are still out here living their best life for a lot of them. And now, if someone were to have an abortion, which again, I'm pro-life, if someone have an abortion, they'll get more penalty than that. So
yeah,
hard pill to swallow.
God help us. I mean, I just think that I'm still convinced that legalizing morality, legislating morality is not the way to go.
Right. I agree.
I think that, we want to legislate. And then I think you're right. And my wife brings this up. So the same people that are like rooting this, they don't want us to mandate wearing a mask or vaccinations. And
it's crazy.
I don't know. I just find it fascinating that we're having this conversation and we're looking at it from both sides. I guess I really want to see, and what I want to see in our churches is let's deal with this. Like, let's deal with the hearts of people.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that it's the Holy Spirit that does the work.
Yes.
Right? And it's the Holy Spirit that can change a person's mind. And God gave us free will. He gave us free will. And in some ways, I did a whole Bible study this summer over Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
I did Joshua, but then Galatians, that's what it was. And one of the things that really fascinated me about Galatians was just the work that had to be done during that time to pull people out of the mindset of law versus grace.
Right. Absolutely.
And I feel like now be careful here, because I don't want anybody sitting there saying, well, you can't compare America to early Israel, which, by the way, I think some people tend to do. Mm-hmm. That's another episode. But I think that the sentiment is very true. Like, we get so caught up in these rules and restrictions that we forget about the work that Jesus did on the cross.
Right.
And then here's the other thing. A woman that gets an abortion, I know a few, I think they think every day about that decision that they made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm convinced.
They think every day about that decision that they made.
Mm-hmm.
And know that I'm not compelled to believe that it is a very easy decision for the average person.
Right. I agree.
I think that there's going to be some interesting things. I mean, I'm even just thinking about what are the implications going to be for the fathers? Like, how many fathers are going to be kept out of the decision of what happens to their child because the woman's going to go to another state and get an abortion and not going to tell the father because they're worried that the father's mother is going to tell on them. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's a real life scenario.
Right.
So now you have fathers that didn't even know that they were even going to have a kid because they couldn't trust the father to keep it to themselves.
Right.
Oh, it's just, whew, I'm sorry. I thought about that, and man, we're going to have to keep posted in that, and in our role in ministry, those are the types of things we're going to have to deal with.
Absolutely.
In the new church.
Right.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that after the next break.
Our world is filled with polarizing topics that land most people on one side or the other.
The Headspace with Dr. Mike team isn't afraid to take them on. Monthly, we will invite people on both sides of some of the most controversial topics, from the serious to the silly, to debate their positions. We look forward to charged discussions that will inform and entertain. DM your head-to-head show ideas to us on Instagram or Facebook at Headspace DM.
Joking around a little bit that I call Bri Dupree. Before the show, I was joking around that she is like a baby Iona Lock. If any of y'all know about some women preachers, Iona Lock is one of them ones that I don't care what passage she preaches, she always just has a way of, well, preached, because she did pass away recently.
Yes.
But anyway, in Bri could respect, because, you know, being from the Philly area, East Coast, like, you know, she was from New York, I believe, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so I always joke. Listen, I say this all the time. I say Bri is one of them ones that if you in service and she on the pulpit and she starts looking in your direction, you better go ahead and just go to the bathroom or something, because she about to pull your card. It's almost like she just knows your business. It's like, what is going on? Like, she just and when she was leaving AHOP in Ohio, I'm sorry I said the name. That's where you were. She did one of her last sermons, and you know, she had a situation. She's going to tell you a little bit about her family and stuff. But she had a situation. People were like, how were you able to navigate all that? And she said, I never lost my thank you, Jesus. Let me tell you something. I threw my phone. And I screamed. She said, I never lost my thank you.
Lost it.
We got to turn this a little bit. So, first of all, over this last year, your father, I think he passed from COVID.
Yes.
So you had to deal with that.
Yes.
Then you had another family member that had it, or I know you ended up having it.
Yes.
And then, oh my gosh, so you had that. Then there was something else that actually went on. What was it? What else was going on? You had something else that you were kind of battling with?
Yeah, so my father passed away from COVID. I got pneumonia.
Okay.
Shortly after that. Then after I had pneumonia, I got COVID and bronchitis together. So
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. It's like 2 months up. My lungs trying to recover from the pneumonia. I had that. And I had one of my girls here in Florida. I disciple a lot of women. She passed away here at a young age. And so it was just like one thing after another. It felt like this whole last year, it felt like I couldn't get up for breath. It was like every time I was like, okay, from my dad's death on, it just felt like it was one hit after another. And so what was unique about after all those opportunities or all those experiences I had, so my father passed away, I had pneumonia, then I had COVID and bronchitis, then my girl passed away. It seemed like at the tail end of each of those events, I was scheduled to preach at the church. So my pastor would call me, and my pastors were great. Pastor Mark and Anna Brooks from AHOP Church are amazing, like spiritual parents to me. And they would say like, hey, are you sure you want to preach? Are you positive? And I would go, yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to. And I realized that it was really my praise that was keeping me above ground. It was really my worship and my consistency and having to study the word and having to remember all the stuff is going on around me, but he's still faithful. And so that's one of the things I wanted to say on my way out of AHOP, at least as a pastor on staff, to say, hey, you want to know how I've been still standing? I really never lost my thank you or my worship. And I was taught that from a young age, from watching especially my mother and my aunt worship through everything. Like, you call my mom at any time now, she could be singing or praying in tongues at any moment. I'd be like, okay, mom, I'll call you back. So I get it honest. I get it from her. But it's the only thing, like I'm thinking back in times. I think Talia's watching now, and Darius is a part of our Church on Fire Elders thread, and Sean was there at a season when we were all struggling, and praise, right, Sean, was literally our weapon. And it's a cute song until you have to do it, and you have to use it.
Listen, you know, it's funny you should say, there was another song we used to sing in one voice, My Worship Is For Real.
Yes.
And I've been through too much not to worship him. Like, I mean, that,
yes,
that in itself. And then I think the song goes, hallelujah, hallelujah, yes. Right? And there is something in that hallelujah, when you give him the highest praise, the praise that he is worthy of. And so you're right, it is truly our weapon.
Yes.
So all right, so you were on staff. You've been in this space of discipleship for a while. Like that is kind of like your thing, right?
Yes.
And so you were a RD, you know, at a college. Then you went on staff as a staff pastor in Ohio and in Florida. Back to Ohio.
Yes.
Where are you at now? What are you doing now?
Yeah, right now I'm the founder and CEO of a ministry called Bri Dupree Ministries. So we exist to help people embrace their process by providing unique opportunities and resources. So it's for leaders. It's obviously Christian based because I'm a follower of Jesus, and that's all I know how to provide strength for you is by pointing you to Jesus. And so we just provide different opportunities from virtual Bible studies to discipleship courses, to worship nights, to in the future we want to do self-care retreats, just allowing people to say, okay, let me breathe for a minute and really think through the process God has me on. I think a lot of times people are running to a promise without submitting to the process.
Ooh.
And so we have to learn.
No. What are they doing?
They're running to the promise without submitting to the process.
Okay.
So I think sometimes we get a prophetic word or we hear a promise in scripture and all these things are amazing, but we're running to it and not realizing God's probably trying to teach me something in the process. He's trying to build up my character, build up my integrity. And so I know as a kid, when I was, naive and get all these prophetic words, I'd be so focused on that prophetic promise that I wouldn't submit to the process to where I was no good when the promise actually showed up.
And I think that's an important piece because, first of all, my definition of process, you've heard it before, is a series of events that must take place in order for one big event to happen, right?
Absolutely.
And so we recognize the refiner's fire. In order for a sword to get its edge, it has to go through that fire, right?
Absolutely.
In order for glass to become what it needs to be, it needs to be put through the fire. There's a process that has to happen. And I think more than ever, and I don't know if this is just a generational thing, but more and more I've experienced that as I've gotten older, I've seen more and more of we're so used to this instant gratification.
Absolutely.
And we have so much at our fingertips now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that plays a role in some of that? Like, do you think that plays a role in that? Like, we're like, well, wait a minute, why can't I have this?
Right.
I can't have that this quick. Why can't I have this?
Well, yeah, I think it does, especially in my generation. We like everything now. We get mad when our Starbucks order doesn't come within 5 minutes. And so I think generations before me, like my parents' generation, they knew a lot. They knew how to endure. And scripture says you have need of endurance. We don't like to teach about that or talk about that anymore because that means you have to wait and you might have to suffer through a thing. You might have to go through something and actually submit to a process. What I've learned over time in my 33 years of life is that through the process, God brings out integrity and character. He's building something in you so that when the promise comes, you're actually able to withstand it and hold it up. And so I think we just want things so quickly, but we don't realize, man, if it comes right now, we won't be able to handle it. It's like the movie Bruce Almighty. Jim Carrey wants all these things, coming to him right away, is mad at God, and then God gives him power to say, hey, okay, you can say yes to all of your prayers. And then what happens? The world is getting burned down. He's saying yes to everything, but he didn't realize he didn't have the character or integrity. The world wasn't ready for what was coming. So.
Wow. There's a whole lot that you said in that. Like that right there could be a whole show.
Absolutely.
That really could be a whole show because what you're dealing with here is recognizing the fact that sometimes we don't have what it is that God has promised us to have.
Right.
Because we're not ready for it.
Absolutely.
There's some things that we got to get. It's so funny you said it. Like the person you met back at Delco High School, or I don't even think, it was Delco High School.
Delco, yeah.
It's not the same man that you have been interacting with over the last 3 years.
True.
And that's because I had a whole lot of process that I had to go through.
Right.
But in the moment, and I may be wrong here, in the moment, sometimes we get frustrated because we're like, but wait a minute. I am ready for that. And it's like, no, you're not.
Right.
And then little things come up where you realize at the time you don't want to own it. But later on down the road, you're like, yeah, I wasn't ready.
Right.
Like, you know what I went through, between leaving Cedarville and
Right.
where I'm at now. And at the time, I was ready to blame everybody else.
Mhm.
And I'm in a situation now where I'm like, oh yeah, I did that.
Right. You needed that growth process. Yeah.
I did that. Like that, I was young and dumb, right? And this is not, by the way, this is not attacking people who are under the age of 30. Like, I don't want our young listeners to think, oh my gosh, they like aging us and talking about no.
Right.
And I've met some very mature people under the age of 30. So I'm not going to say that. However, one of the things I do say that is there is something for the maturity process that we have to go through.
Absolutely.
I think about Simone Biles, for instance, that decision that she made, and now that we know the whole story, it makes even more sense.
Right.
She was in a situation where she literally she couldn't see the ground, and she was getting disoriented when she was in the air doing these complicated twists that make her Simone Biles.
Right.
And so she had two choices. She said either A, she could just go ahead and do it, knowing that she was having these issues,
right,
hurting herself, which in turn will hurt the team in the long run.
Right.
Or say, you know what, y'all, I can't do it. And instead of me hurting you all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tap out.
Right.
So that way I don't do any more damage to what we're trying to do as a team. That's maturity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's something that I think that we have to realize. And so you bring up a very good point. So you got the people who are interested in following you on social media. So after this break, I want you to kind of talk about that. Like, how can we get in touch with Bri Dupree? How can we get engaged with what you're doing? What are some projects that you're working on? Right. And when we will hear from you next time on Headspace with Dr. Mike.
Absolutely. All right.
Focused on photo, versed in video, For Any Media brings visions to life, from headshots to family shoots, casual candids to structured scenes. Our team can provide whatever you need. In Baltimore, you may have seen us at local events such as the Poly City Tailgate or the Randallstown Romp. You can find us on all social media platforms at the number 4 Any Media. For Any Media, for anything. Contact us so we can create.
All right. So how do we check out what you're doing, Bri?
Yeah, you can go to my website, BriDupreeMinistries.com, where you have all updates on all of our events. You can follow me on Facebook, Bri Dupree. You can also follow me on Instagram as @BriDupree_ on Instagram. So we have quite a few things happening right now. On every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're doing a virtual Bible study on Facebook. That it's just out there. But we're talking about why revival tarries, so what it really means for revival to come and why it doesn't come, and how can we maintain it on a real scale. I think revival is a word that's being talked a lot about in our churches, which is a good thing, but what is it really? So we're talking through that. And I'm also launching, starting next Thursday, we're doing a 5-week intensive discipleship course. So I'm showing you how I disciple other people, walking you through the discipleship process, helping you figure out the beginning steps of what your process is. So that's 5 weeks on Thursday evening, starting at 7 p.m. Every Thursday starting next week. And you can register for that on my website as well. And so we have some conferences hopefully coming up. We have Embrace Nights here in Orlando. So if you're in the Orlando area, our first one will be on October 17th. We're doing baptisms, hanging out by the pool, worship, teaching. It'll just be a great time just to kind of relax and enjoy fellowship with one another. So, but you can keep up with me on those social media accounts and mainly on my website, BriDupreeMinistries.com.
And, my nonprofit, Restored Hope, is we still have to do a collab or 2 or 7. So we will definitely be working together on that. You have a person who asked, when is the book coming out? Is there a book in the works?
Yes, I'm working on my first book. Yes, and Sean is actually part of my team. Sean's my operations director, and so he stays on me about those things. So yes, hopefully sometime early next year you'll see a book coming out from me.
So I got a question for you because we have a little bit of time. Why you're the queen of discipleship? Why is that important? Like, why is discipleship, being engaged in discipleship, an important thing?
Yeah, it's important because it's how believers learn how to follow Jesus. I think what happens a lot of times is that we have altar calls, which I'm not against altar calls, but we have an altar call. People come up and get saved, and then we don't teach people how to then walk free. It's been years ago. I think I was in high school where I saw a pastor. He was preaching on this concept of helping people walk free. And he was talking about how these animal care people had picked up this injured lion, and they took it back to the facility and got it all taken care of and put it back in the jungle. So they dropped the cage in the jungle, opened the door. The lion went out and went to go play with his family. They went back to pick up the cage, and the lion was sitting in the cage with the door open. And so they were saying how the lion wasn't taught what it meant again to be free because it had been in captivity for so long.
My God.
It's the same thing for people who have not known Jesus. You've been in slavery to sin for so long that it's easy to go back to it because that's what you know. And so if we don't actually walk you through the process of learning how to be free, then you're just going to go back to that cage. So we can't keep getting mad at people who are like, well, did you just go to the altar last week? Yeah, but who actually took them by their hand and said, this is what freedom looks like. This is what, it's like what they talk about where battered women go back to their abusive husbands. Not because they like that, but they're used to it. So we got to teach them, hey, this might be tough, but freedom is amazing and it looks good. And so that's why I think discipleship is so vital and important. We have to teach people what freedom looks like and actually walk with them. And Eugene Peterson said, discipleship is a long journey in the same direction. So it's me making the same obedience every day in the same direction. And so it takes time, but it's worth it when you can see people actually embrace what it means to be free.
My goodness, that right there is impressive because that's so true. I've never heard anybody explain it that way. Like, you got to teach people how to be free.
Absolutely.
Because we've been so used to just live. I mean, our natural inclination is to be bound to sin. Like,
right.
That's what we're born into the world. We're born into sin. Like, and nobody likes to teach that, but that is true. Like, that's who we are. Like, the only thing that separates me from anybody else is the blood of Jesus. I've accepted, that gift that he gave, right?
Right. That's right.
So with that, that's our inclination, and you still have to learn. And I mean, I think that could apply to other aspects of our lives too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? If all I knew was an abusive relationship with my father, then how can I know what being a father that doesn't abuse my child looks like?
Absolutely.
Or the same thing with a mother. Or if I'm used to, just being taken advantage of in all the social relationships that I've been in,
right?
Then help me understand what a healthy relationship looks like.
Right.
And those are things that come up in those discipleship sessions. Like, we start out with learning about what the text says about being a follower of Christ, but then also by you bonding with the people that you're in the group with and interacting with the leader, right? You start, it becomes its own little community, which is a piece that, we need to make sure we have in order to navigate through these troubled waters.
Absolutely. And people they just need support. We weren't meant to do life alone. We're meant to do life in community, and community has to sit through all the chaos of life and the process and the journey. You need people who are walking alongside you and saying, hey, I want to embrace this process with you. And I want to figure it out, all the ups and downs. So it leaves just being us looking at the text and us now living the text. And how do we live the text? And so that's why I think discipleship is vital to what we do as believers. It has to happen.
Bri Dupree Ministries, I tell you what, you guys need to check her out. Definitely check her out on all her social media. She has clips galore. I'm telling you, even her TikTok, she posts things that I'm telling you, I almost threw that phone. Let's go ahead and take this last break so we can close out for the people.
Follow the Headspace with Dr. Mike show on all social media platforms at Headspace DM. We want to keep you up to date on all of our hot topics and keep the dialogue going even after the show. We also value what's important to you and your community. DM your show ideas to us on Instagram or Facebook. The next time you log on, you may hear Dr. Mike discussing the very topic or issue close to your heart.
Well, that was a quick hour, wasn't it?
It sure was. It went by like that.
My goodness. I tell you what, I have a date with my bed.
Come on. Yeah, you need rest.
Get back in this bed, y'all, and let my body do what it's supposed to do and recuperate.
Yes, please.
We have a busy week. We are, I know down in Florida, y'all are all the way live down there, but we still taking our time up here in Maryland, and our church has not been open to all the members since the middle of March 2020.
Right.
And we are actually preparing to open back up the third weekend in September. And so we have a whole lot, and a lot of the festivities actually start next week with some preemptive stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so I got a busy week ahead of me, so I need to get all the rest I can now so I can be ready. But Bri, it was so good to have you on the show. Are you going to come back and talk to us at some point?
Absolutely. You just tell me when.
All right, good. I'm had to get you, and we may even have to do a show with all the elders so y'all can experience the craziness that ensues. Because it really is a mess. It is truly a mess. We probably can't share everything that we talked about.
Right.
Yeah, we can't let y'all in on everything, but we can let y'all in on something. But everybody, I wish you the peace that only God can give you all this week. I just pray that you get restored this week, everybody. Enjoy this weekend. It's Labor Day weekend. Most of you get Monday off. But if you don't, enjoy your time and a half when you get your next paycheck. But then also, try to take some time off for yourself. But my prayer for you all is that you just have some peace. So with that being said, all the Headspacers, peace.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Headspace with Dr. Mike. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow us on social media at Headspace DM to continue the dialogue with other Headspacers regarding today's show. Everyone is filling their headspace with something. The question is, what are you filling yours with? Tune in next week.